Today we're going to be talking about a subject which is very close to my heart, supporting parents who are experiencing mental distress or addiction. I'd like to warmly welcome to the studio Margaret and Bianca, our guest speakers for today. We're so lucky to be able to hear from you both about the mahi that you are involved in. Margaret Vitale is a support worker based in Tamaki Makaurau, working in the family centre run by Odyssey, an organisation that supports people seeking wellness and their whānau to live the lives they want, free from addiction challenges. Malualele, Margaret.
Malualele, Alexia.
And our second guest speaker is Bianca Taute, a maternal mental health support worker at the Whatu Ora, Health New Zealand, and a board member of PARA, Perinatal Anxiety and Depression at Aotearoa. Bianca lives in Makatu and provides perinatal support to pregnant people and new parents in the Rotorua area through the perinatal team. No mai haere mai, Bianca. Welcome to The Difference.
Thank you.
It's great to have you both here with us today. Margaret, could you start off by introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, thank you, Alexia. Malualele, ko kuingoa ko Margaret Vitale, ko lele mai me niua, vava'u hapai and whasi in tongatapu. Hello, Alexia. My name is Margaret, and I'm really grateful to be here. I'm a grateful recovering addict. I'm a solo mum to 5 beautiful girls, and I'm a support worker for an amazing organisation called Odyssey House. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And Bianca, could you introduce yourself, please?
Ko Bianca hau, i te taho o tōku papa, no Aotearoa, fiercely Aotearoa strong wahine. No ko whakapaunākau te maunga, ko matawera te awa, ko Ngāti Uanuku kōpako te hapū, ko Ngāti Rangi te arere hoki te hapū, ko te aroa te iwi, te aroa te tangata. Kia ora, e nei te taho tōku māma no the mighty Waikato. No ko maunga tautiri te maunga, ko maunga tautiri taku marae, ko Waikato te awa, he piko he taniwha, ko Ngāti Koroki, kahukura tōku iwi, and ko te aroa tōku waka, ko tainui aroha mai tōku waka. He piko he taniwha, but he mihi nui ki ngā wai honoi te pō a mātou kuini. Kia ora koutou, thank you for having me on the episode today. I'm Bianca. On my dad's side, I hail from the south of America, Chile. I'm Bianca, according to him. And to my whānau here, I am Bianca, or B, better known as B. And I am a proud solo mama to a beautiful young boy, Nico, who's 7, and he is my world. And I am a support worker at Te Whatu Ora after starting in some support working in an NGO in Rotorua. Yeah, and it's an absolute honour and privilege to be here today with you guys.
Margaret, you work for Odyssey, which is a very well-known organisation throughout Aotearoa for the amazing work that they do. Are you able to tell me a little bit more about the family centre where you work?
Yeah, so I'm based at the Family Centre Odyssey House. It is a drug and alcohol residential program. We use the TC model, or the therapeutic community model. We have our parents and our children there. We support them, not only the parents, but we support the children as well. As they come in, our program is structured like a hierarchy structure. So they'll come in and start from the level starters, and they'll work their way up the levels. And as they work up the levels, they get to have more responsibilities and more privileges. We support the parents to make the changes that they need to make to stay clean and sober. Not only that, but we support our little ones at home with, putting them into kindies and school and all that amazing stuff.
It's amazing. Yeah, I was saying to you when we were doing the prep for this episode that I would love to come up and see the space. It sounds like an amazing space. And how many families can stay there at any one time?
Yeah. So we can house up to 10 parents. The parents can come in and they can have up to 3 kids with them while doing recovery. Yeah.
It must be a big place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only it's big, but beautiful.
Yeah, I think you were saying you call it paradise.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the families that come in there, they have their own space, but then they have the communal areas.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. So they get to have their own ensuite with their own rooms. Sometimes they think it's a hotel. So I try my best to step in and remind them it's not a hotel. Yeah. You're in the program. And so they share the lounge and the kitchen and all the other stuff. But yeah, it's nice that they get to have their own space that they can go into and feel, they have their own privacy and everything like that. Yeah.
And on average, how long do they come and stay with you?
Okay, so our program roughly runs from 9 months to 14 months, depending on how well they're travelling. As we all know, it's not an easy road to go down, but around about that time.
That's amazing. Yeah, well, beautiful space, hey?
Yeah.
Awesome, Marcy. Awesome mahi that you do. Yeah. And Bianca, could you tell us a little bit about where you work?
So I work in the community team, so we're not based at the hospital. I do spend a bit of time in the hospital with our mamas just after they birth, but generally I'm seeing the mamas in their homes. So, and our time frame that we can tautoko them is between pregnancy. There are exceptions to that. We've had the odd mama who we've actually supported them prior to finding out they're actually pregnant, but that's usually our mamas who are going down the IVF route, who have every intention to get pregnant. It's just a matter of biologically that working out for them. But generally it's around the period of pregnancy through to their babies being 1. That's the technical period. But I love what I do. I tell everybody I feel like I have the best job in the world, and I definitely have the best job in our mental health space. As a support worker, when I came into this field, I was like the pilot for perinatal mental health to have a support worker, and it came with its interesting, I guess, challenges. One of them being I didn't really have a job description, which I loved. Because they didn't really know how a support worker might fit. So I've been able to mould it, and I'm halfway through my 5-year contract. So I feel like I'm finally at a space where I've hit the sweet spot, I guess, of making it really feel meaningful in what I do, and with a passion to still do and love it and wake up excitedly to bust over to Torotora to do my mahi. And my managers and my colleagues always comment that my passion is infectious. Like I live and breathe everything perinatal now. And I, like I said, I love my job, and I'm blessed to be with the mamas and be on that journey with them. That you're right, Margaret, can be a long journey. Those journeys that our mamas can find themselves in. So
And I think you've both kind of mentioned that it's mostly mama who are seeking these services, but your services, are they just for mama?
Also, in our service, we've had young mums in there. We've had a grandma in there, even dads come in as well. So our program is not only for mamas, but pretty much for anyone that's, let's say, a primary carer of a child and seeking, their wellness. They can come through our doors. It's always open.
That's fantastic.
Originally, when I first came into the mahi, the word that we always use was maternal mental health. And then, especially through Pāta's work, we've really pushed to to be more inclusive of the papa, because I guess once we call it maternal mental health, then it does make that space harder for our papa to kind of nudge into, when really they are every part of being, the centre of that. I mean, that baby came from both of them. So we've really been intentional about changing the words that we use, the kupu we use. In our service itself, we are perinatal, which means parents, and generally we see papas that will come to the groups that I run. So we run groups around attachment and bond based on Bowlby's attachment theory, called Circle of Security, and they come to those with their partners. I do a lot of mahi around brain development and stuff like that, and I show a lot of the material that Dr. Nathan Mikaere-Wallace puts out around the first 2,000 days, and lots of our papas come to that. But just recently we've had our first papa come onto service for one-on-one, and that was a self-referral, so I'm super proud of him. And he's acknowledged that he will become the primary caregiver once that baby is born, and it's a blast. Like I love that for him.
How did you get into this work, Margaret?
So when I finished my treatment, there was no plan in me doing this, being a support worker. My plan was just to finish the treatment and have my kids back in my care. After treatment, I did my level 4 in mental health and addiction. So while doing that, I needed to look for a place to do my placement. So while doing that, I thought I'll just start applying for jobs, and I ended up applying for a job at Odyssey. They gave me a call and told me that I didn't get the role, but they saw the part where I forgot to take out on my CV that I'm looking for somewhere to do my placement. So they said, "Oh, sorry, you don't get the role, but if you want to come in and do your placement here, we're willing to take you on." And that was an amazing feeling, just getting offered to go and do placement there. And from there, did my placement towards the end, part-time role came up. And I remember going for the interview. I mean, I haven't even been told I got the role, but just being in the building, knowing I'm going for an interview, that warmed my heart, just being there and being grateful for it. And ever since then, it's just been blessing upon blessings for me and my little family with the opportunities that Odyssey, have got for me. It's it's been an amazing journey, but that's how I became a support worker.
Fantastic. And so how long have you been there now?
4 years. I've been there. Yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. And you're studying as well?
Yes. So working at Odyssey, I see everyone studying. So I thought, oh my goodness, I'll start copying them, and then now I'm copying them. I'm like, oh my goodness, the sleepless nights, why would they do this to themselves? But again, and I'm really grateful to be working in a space where everyone is really supportive. I feel like they give up more time to me than our own tāngata whaiora, but truly blessed.
And what about you, Bianca? How did you get into this mahi?
Oh, good old lived experience.
Yep.
I'm an educator by background, so I've taught psychology for many years. So I was always aware of psychology, and I actually, proud Waikato alumni from here. But I started working in the international system, under the education system, the IB system. And so I was teaching overseas psychology in the private schools in the UK. I did a short stint in Japan. I tried my my chances in the US. Wasn't really for me. Too many guns. And then I ended up in the Middle East, and I was the head of department for psychology over there. And I love psychology. I've always had an interest in how minds work, how people work, how people's brains tick over, and how different people can be. And so I fell pregnant with my son in the Middle East. It's very different laws there. I had to be married and I wasn't. So I came back to birth my son, and then quite quickly after his birth, I was depressed and I struggled with my own mental health, and I'd always had anxiety, I guess, and I'm a perfectionist, fully admitted, proclaimed. That's my addiction. Work too hard and don't give myself a break. Perfectionist, and I just felt like that skill set was not motherhood. So everything I knew how to be didn't fit being Nico's mum. He was also premature, so he came with his own health challenges. And I also realised I didn't grieve how much my life had changed. Like, I'd lived overseas for 10 years and I had a really cool life. Like, I travelled a lot and, to give that life up, I think that's also something I didn't acknowledge that was going to be hard. I didn't get a sense to mourn because I think, there's a image around how you should be as a mum and you should be happy and you should be, excited. And so there was an element of me that was like, is this enough for me? And like you said, Alexia, we love our babies. Don't get me wrong, I love my son more than anybody. He's my world for sure, but it's polar opposite to what I was doing. Yeah. And the accomplishments I felt like I had made, the ground I had made working in that system, to now be at the hands of a baby who sets your world on fire in good and bad ways, in terms of you now do what they want to do. And all my skills I had as a person to survive almost worked against me to be a mum because he had no structure. As much as I wanted him to, he had no structure. And that's hard to let go of that kind of control and really be okay to just let the baby dictate your life. And I struggled with that. So quite early on I became really unwell, and I went through the services and I put my hand up and I said, I need help right now. And very quickly I went downhill. I came right. And then from that moment, I really learned a lot of things that, there's not many people in this. We need a village for these children, but we also need a village for their mums, especially our solo mums. There are a lot of solo mums in our communities. And then we're working against stigma. We're working against cultural acceptance. We're working against shame, whakamā. We're working against the idea that, families are there so they can help you and that they're the right people to help you. And sometimes they are, don't get me wrong. But sometimes they're not because they have their own ways of, you parent like this, And so, lived experience brought me to this mahi. And once I was, became aware, I think I've mentioned this to you both, that I realised very quickly that no one is immune from mental health struggles. Yeah. I wholeheartedly knew everything about depression and anxiety. I taught it for 10 years. Yeah. I knew everything. Yep. And I did not envision myself struggling in that field until I was struggling. Yep. And then when I was in it, it's a dark place to be in.
It sure is.
Yeah. And so from that moment, I knew that I was going to shift from teaching, and it's still teaching. It's just teaching alongside them. Yeah. To be with these mothers and know that they have a village, because if it wasn't for my well child nurse, who still works in the field to this day, asking me how I am, not how son was, how I was, and I hadn't been asked that before. I hadn't. And that's not a discredit to all the other health workers I'd met along the way, but there is always a lot of focus on the babies and minimal on the mamas. And I was like, that's not right. That's not right. And so when she asked me how I was, and I choked up and I couldn't speak and I cried, she was like, oh no, what's going on? And I said, I'm unwell and I need help now. Yeah. And she said to me from the start, and she knows I say this all the time when I present my story, she said to me very clearly and honestly, I'm sorry, Bianca, there's not many Pacifica or Māori people in the space And I said, I don't need them to be Māori. I know how to be Māori. I need them to help me because this feeling I'm feeling, it's foreign. And right now I truly believe Nico would be better off with someone else.
Yeah.
And I meant like a really cool foster family or something. That is so far from the truth of what today is. You know, like I know for a fact I'm a good son, I'm a good mama to my son. But at that time, that's how dark it was getting. And I just wanted the best for him. And I am thankful that she was honest to me, that there were minimal Māori or Pacifica, because then I went into this aware of that. And she wasn't lying. It was, yeah. And but like I said, I didn't need that help. I didn't need somebody to tell me how to be Māori. I didn't need somebody to help me with that. I have always known who I am Māori. Yep. It was, I need you to help me and I will take whatever help I need right now. And they did help me. And very quickly I knew I needed to give back, and I wanted to give back in a way that was helping mama. And so I came out from education after many, many years and all my training, and threw myself into the health field and into the maternal mental health field, which is like the cousin, the smaller cousin of the mental health field. And then perinatal is smaller. It's a niche. But I'm blessed. I love the area that I'm in because, you know, here's a little insight into mental health. Quite a lot of the people who work in mental health, they never really see their whai, their service users, their whatever kupu we're going to use, their patients really get better. Quite a lot of them get managed in terms of their medication and finding balances. But in perinatal mental health, I see people get better, just like how I got better. And it can turn around quite quickly. And I've worked out what the key of that is, being with. That's the secret, guys. You can stop listening here. That's the secret. Be with people. Literally be with them. Make sure that every interaction you have, they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel validated, they feel motivated, and you make sure that you leave every interaction with their mana intact, because that's a big part of why our mamas struggle, our parents struggle, is because the journey to become a mama, they've had their mana little by little, they've lost that along the way. It could have been that society has put pressure on and they've lost it. It could be parents' expectations on how they should be and they don't feel like they're living up to that. It could be some of the workers that they meet have made comments, very tiny comments that fester in our mamas' minds. And irrespective of how the mana's been gone, I think we need to be intentional in what we all do and everybody in what we do, and making sure that ideally whakamana them, build them back up, because heck, you're not building just them, you're building that whole family up. But at the very least, leave every interaction knowing that you evened out the scale of mana and you left with a balance. And I feel like that's something that as a support worker I've learned, and I do a lot of training actually to help others who inherently have that mana power balance in their favour, the doctors, the psychiatrists, the obstetricians, the midwives, the plunket nurses, they all inherently have that mana. And that's why those small comments are mamai. That's why they hurt. That's why they feel judgy, is because these people come with this expertise. And so I do a lot of advocating for these mama, and I'll be like, do we know we mentioned that this baby is small? And 6 months later, the mama's still thinking about that comment.
Oh, I have that exact memory, you know. Yeah. So when my daughter was born, she was little, which I was grateful about at the beginning. And
for obvious reasons.
Yeah, for obvious reasons. And then she just stayed small. Yeah. And nobody kind of explained to me that it's a bell curve for a reason, and there's always going to be somebody at each end of it.
For sure.
And so, she just was really nosy as a baby. But it meant that...
Curious.
Oh, yeah.
We call that curiosity.
Strengths-based. Yeah, we'll go curiosity. She was nosy. And so if I'm trying to feed her and there's a noise,
right,
she's looking away, and then it just interferes with the milk flow.
Of course.
And then you just, and so I had Plunkett say to me, she's not growing, her brain's not going to be developing.
Oh, yeah.
And so then I felt like I was starving her and giving her brain damage. And so I just became obsessed with trying to get more food into her, which is not good for anybody, because then it becomes the really unhealthy kind of a focus on that. Yeah. And she just really was just interested in everything else but food.
Yeah.
And, she's fine. She's met all her milestones, but at the time I really thought I was damaging her. And that little one comment, they even sent us to the paediatrician at the hospital because they thought she wasn't growing. And he's like, this is the healthiest baby I've ever seen. Why are you here?
And those comments happen far too often.
Yeah.
Far too often.
Yeah. And I just thought it was my fault and I was failing her as a mum, So it does. It goes round and round in your head. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. And I'm not going to lie that quite a lot of times when I bring this attention to these people who have said it, they don't even remember it. They're like, did I? And I'm like, well, you must have.
It's burned into my brain.
Yeah. And I know why that is, because we have, if you've ever met me before, you'll know this word, the shitty committee. So we have, everybody has a shitty committee, but the mama's shitty committee is loud. And it's usually loud between 1 and 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So right when you're trying to have your best sleep, your shitty committee has their agenda, and it's usually, you could do better. You could be a better mum.
Someone else would be a better mum.
Somebody else would be a better mum. My baby I could be brain damaging my child. I could be doing better. I could be more present. I could not put him in front of the TV to make dinner. All of those judgments. We already have self-judgments. And that shitty committee is loud, and normally it's negative. Yep. So, of course, if that's what we've woken up to, it's hard for us to go about our day. Absolutely. And then we go around with our day already feeling sensitive. So any comment like that, it's just going to reinforce and confirm, I guess, the shitty committee's agenda of I could be better and I should be better and my baby deserves better and my son or my daughter or my many daughters deserves better. And so we're always fighting against that. Yeah.
So we've been talking a little bit about, some of the skills that support workers need to have in this space. What do you think a support worker working in your kind of space needs to be really good at?
I think I know other support workers, they're good at doing what they're doing, so I'm going to speak for what I need to be good at. Alexia, I think empathy and boundaries, it's a big one. A big one for me is carrying that hope for our tāngata whai and believing in them. I need to be good at that. I remember when I was in treatment and my case manager, my poor case manager, they had to put up with me. He had that for me. He carried a lot of hope. He believed in me and all that stuff that I lost when I was in active addiction. So working in this field now, I apply that to how I work with others, and it's a beautiful thing to witness when you're carrying their hope for them and how it uplifts their mana and, and empower them. So, thank you.
And you were saying about boundaries, and we were having a wee joke in the prep session that you were talking about that's something that you struggle with sometimes, especially with the tamariki.
Yes, I struggle to have professional boundaries at work, especially when you're walking through the door and one child is coming for that leg and another child, and it's hard, but I'm working on it. Thank you, Alexia.
Good luck with that one.
Oh, it's going to be a long time. But, yeah.
Well, it's instinct, though, isn't it? It's how you're responding to children. I don't know how you do it either. But, you were saying to me, you just treat them like your own family, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that for a lot of people, that'll be beautiful. Yeah. That'll be really beautiful, coming home every day and seeing your face there.
Yeah. And that's a true sign. Like babies, like they pick up on stuff like the fact that they do that to you shows that they love you and they trust you. And I'm like, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's hard not to be playful. Working at a family centre, you gotta have that side to you, and just making them feel comfortable and making them feel at home. I guess,
No, that's awesome. What other things do support workers need in your field need to be good at, Bianca?
So what I do is I'm really genuine about what I do, everything. I do the mahi I do with integrity. When I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm there. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm there. I've had to be better. I'm glad you brought up boundaries, Margaret, because I used to be yes man. I swear Jim Carrey made his movie after me because I was like, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. But that's what passion does for you. When you're passionate, you can't help it because it doesn't feel like work to me.
And when you have that empathy as well, though.
Yep. Yeah. And when you've had that lived experience and you know how dark it can be if you're not getting the support that you deserve, and they do deserve. But it is hard. You do have to allow them to dictate the journey. And I've had to do a lot of supervision around being okay with their path for themselves. So I support them to be the mamas they want to be as opposed to the mamas that worked, how I was or what worked for me. Yeah. And I've needed a lot of supervision around that. I've had 5 years of supervision and that topic still comes up regularly. Yeah. And we've nailed it down to I always see the potential in them more so than sometimes they see in themselves. And so that's a hard one for me because I know in my heart of hearts I'm like, but she can do X, Y, Z. I know it. But if that's not their journey, that's not their journey. Yeah. And kei te pai. Yeah. Timing is also everything. So that's a big part of it, really understanding your bias, your journey, and whilst that worked for you, it's different for everybody. Just like our babies are different, we are different, and mamas are different. But really taking the time to really know and help, really listen to them to know how they want to be a mama. And then your job just becomes supporting them to do that. And I guess I'm blessed because our Te Whatu Ora Lakes has a they met with community, the mental health team, years ago, and they created a model of care. That model of care is called Te Ara Tauwheretanga, and that is an agreement between the people of Te Arawa. And just like most hospitals, our hospital has a beautiful view over the lake, usually prime property, and so does ours in Rotorua. And our birthing unit and our postnatal ward has the best views of the best views, overlooking the hill, Makoia Island, beautiful. We have an agreement with the community. We serve our community. And they said that at every single turn, every single interaction, we need to make sure that they're at the centre of their own journey. Not what we think is best for them, what they want for their journey, them and their whānau. And so we are intentional about doing that. And so I guess I'm a little bit thankful because that model keeps me in tune because it's like, Bianca, check yourself. This is not the you show. This is not about what you want for them. It's what they want for themselves.
Yeah, it's a big skill as a support worker, is acknowledging that people have got to have their own self-determination and make their choices for themselves, even if sometimes they don't work out well, but we all learn by making mistakes. And we want to wrap our people in cotton wool sometimes, but it's not life.
No.
It's part of the journey, isn't it? Yeah. What do you think are the hardest parts of your mahi?
I think the hardest part will be working along staff members that make you feel or look down at the way you work. It's it's not a good feeling. I don't know if it's because they hold a higher role, or is it because I'm a recovering addict. But at the end of the day, Alexia, I use it as a drive. You know, I tell myself I'm going to keep on bettering myself.
Beautiful.
And keep on putting in the hard work, you know, that I need for myself, for our tāngata whai and their beautiful children that we have in our home. But yeah.
Unfortunately, it's something that's come up a few times. If people listen to season 1 of the podcast, we had a few people on there that were talking about how clinicians usually, and this is not an anti-clinician show, we love our clinicians, but how sometimes they don't see the value that support workers can bring, and they don't acknowledge the amount of wisdom that our support workers have, who spend so much time with tāngata whaiora, that they see them in all their glory, and they could really contribute to the conversation, but they just don't get acknowledged, maybe because they think it's a lesser role or something. But it's hard when that happens, isn't it? And I'm glad to hear that you're using it to drive you instead. But never discount. You have incredible story, an incredible journey that you've been on, and you will have learnt so much through that you could fill a PhD.
For sure.
So just hold your head high.
You're an integral part of the jigsaw puzzle, my friend. Yeah,
Thank you.
That no other health professional, anyone else can be that puzzle piece. So, yeah, definitely I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah. What about you, Bianca? What's some of the hardest things that you have to encounter in your mahi?
I guess it's a very vulnerable period for mamas. And I'm not naive. I know they wish wholeheartedly they didn't need us. Hey, really, hey, Margaret? Like, they didn't need either of our roles, because it would mean that their mental health is fine. It would mean they don't have an addiction. So we have to come into this space sensitively, because whilst we love our jobs, ideally, if the world was a better place, we wouldn't need either of our roles. And so being cautious around that and being integral and intentional around acknowledging that this is not the path or not the way maybe they wanted their journey to be. But we come in and we are with you. We are part of the village and we're here to help you. And then I guess because of going into what I call a privileged space, we're privileged to be part of, for lots of people, families, mamas can be different, and mamas are different in terms of they are very, they like to shut off the world and just be with their babies and that. And so they're letting us into a time when some of their family members haven't even met these babies and we're meeting them, or we have a relationship with them and extended family members haven't seen them. And so I guess because we come into that space at a vulnerable and yet privileged time though, and then we build the trust with them. Trust can be everything. If we've had whānau that have gone through our system and they were not supported in ways that were nice, that stuff lingers.
Yeah.
That's what they call intergenerational trauma, right? And so we already come in on the back foot, really, because they didn't really want us. They wish they probably didn't need us. And so we need to come into this space cautiously with aroha and kindness and compassion, and Margaret spoke of. And then, but still holding the balance of, that balance between we're there to help them, but we don't want them to be codependent on us, because that's also not helpful, because we need to whakamana them to feel confident in themselves and take lead and take charge and, you know, be that rangatira in their own journey, be that mana wahine in their own journey, and we support them to do so. So being very, not too much in, but not too much out.
Yeah.
Enough in to know we're there,
Yeah.
but not too much in that they honestly believe that the positives that they're making or the good development or changes they're doing is because of us. Because I'm like, no way, that is not because of us.
Yeah, it's a real balancing act, isn't it?
It is. And every mum is different, so it's hard to know. Oh, where do you fit in that? And I think I heard that in one of your last season around that's part of boundaries, like really understanding their journey enough to know, am I too in? And now they believe that they can only achieve X, Y, and Z if you're there, and it's like that defeats the purpose. Like that's not what we're in this for. We're in this to help them. Yep. And so always trying to navigate that space can be hard. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And I know, Margaret, you're going to have some beautiful things for us here because you just love your job, and it just, you know, kind of exudes out of you. You know, what are the best parts of your job?
Oh man, there's so many, but I think one of my main one is rocking up to work and seeing our little ones just being happy with their parents. You know, they've got their mama or their papa there, being present with them and watching the parent and the child thriving together and healing together. You know, I love that, and you know, I think that's why I've chosen to hang around for this long, and it keeps on making me keep on coming back. You know, and I love that, seeing that day in, day out. It's such a beautiful thing to witness. You know, after what I went through with my kids, you know. I'm really happy, and I look at the kids at our home and I think, oh man, I wish I did that with my kids. And you know, so our kids, family centre, they're very lucky, and they deserve it.
Yeah,
you know, if anything, they deserve to be in that safe space with their mum or their dad, being clean and sober.
Amen.
Thank you.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
Wow.
What about you, Bianca?
Oh, there's so many good parts about my job. I love it. I guess because I'm a teacher at heart, I love group stuff. I know the power of group. I mean, even if they come to group and I don't know, we sat down and just had coffee, the power in group is already amazing. They've come out of their comfort zone. They've brought their babies out. That's a huge achievement. Heck, it can take half a day to get a baby out of the house, right? And if the weather's not if the weather's not cooperating, it's hard.
That's a
basket.
massive achievement.
Yeah.
I remember going to a coffee morning, and it was one of those days where I just felt like I was complete and utter failure. And so I went to this house, beautiful house, you know, just everything in its place. You were comparing,
weren't you?
Yeah. The mum, who I'm, you know, not dissing at all, but had already gone for a hike in the mountain behind her house with her baby that morning.
Well, you thought you had gone for a hike.
Yeah, I know. But she was like, no, we've been for a hike. She'd made organic muffins. I don't know.
Organic.
And I was like, well, I put the rubbish out.
Girl, high five.
That was my achievement, and the fact that I left the house. Yeah, I
got my kid in the car.
I didn't brush my hair, but I got the rubbish out, you know. And I was just like, oh,
did it.
why are some people just nailing this and I'm not? You know,
some days we are, some days we're not. That's it. But yeah, that's probably a big part of it. And so I love it, and I love group.
Yeah.
And my plan would be to do group after group after group because. Like I said, I'm a teacher at heart.
Yeah.
And so...
It fills your bucket.
Yeah, it does. And it's a great
cool.
use of skills, and it's a great use of, you know, pulling people together. They have their own village.
Well, people are so isolated now, you know. We're apparently, you know, so connected now. But I actually think we're more isolated than we are connected.
Yeah.
I want to ask you both why we need these services.
New Zealand need a lot more services like Family Centre. If anything, it's important that we have those safe spaces, where the parents can do recovery while having their kids, and learning to build a better relationship with their kids while doing recovery, and building, a healthier life together, not only that, but the thought of, having our kids being in a safe space and not being in a environment where there's domestic violence and all of that. So, we need more services like Family Centre. Yeah, thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah. What about you, Bianca?
I think because if we expect our babies to be our future leaders, how can they be strong leaders if their first teacher, being their mama, wasn't supported to be their best versions of themselves? Because what were they then modelled? What were they then shown? So I think our society needs to prioritise giving more to these mama. They're not just incubators that then birth the babies and then, they become the background to the children. No, it's the other way around. If we build up our mamas and we whakamana the mamas to give them back their mana that they deserve, that they should have as a wahine, as a person, then we are showing our babies that it's important to, take time out for yourself, self-care, build yourself up, educate yourself, put more skills in your kete, because those will be the things that our babies will see, those will be the things that our babies remember, and I hope that those would be the things that our babies would emulate to be better leaders for our future.
Beautiful. What a beautiful place to finish that conversation. I just really want to thank you both for being here and sharing your stories, and for doing the mahi that you do. As a mama who didn't get any help, I'm so pleased that there are people out there like you both doing this work every day and helping mama to get through, and papa. Whenever somebody reaches out, there should be somebody at the other end.
Agreed.
And so if we can, even through this episode, it's a little thing to try and get the word out there that, services like these are saving lives, actually. I just really want to thank you both, and keep doing the amazing work that you're both doing. And it's been lovely to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel privileged to be amongst two other mana wahine, so thank you. Thank you guys, both.
Thank you.
Yeah, ngā mihi.
Thanks for listening to The Difference. We'd love to hear what you think about the podcast and where it is reaching. If you've got a few minutes, please do leave us a comment in the comments section. Tell us what role you're in and which bits of the podcast you've found useful. It'll help us to know if we're pitching things right or picking topics that resonate with the sector. Kia ora.